בשם השם נעשה ונצליח. שיעור תורה, ברוכים הבאים, שבוע טוב, שבוע מבורך. Tonight's shiur was sponsored by some very dear people, and B'ezrat Hashem, tonight's shiur will be for Ilui Nishmat Neshama Shira Bat Miriam Olga, who is an Eshet Chayil, who left this world in Olam HaBa right now, committed her life to Hashem and her kids, buried in Gush Etzion in Eretz Yisrael. May her neshama have a aliyah. Also for her children, Shamayim Naomi Bat Neshama Shira. B'ezrat Hashem she'll find a zivug of a tzaddik, Yireh Shamayim, that not only knows Torah but also knows how to deal with today's world and to overcome all obstacles, B'ezrat Hashem, and be a good husband. Also for Ruth Bat Neshama Shira, Kadosh Baruch Hu will give her success in everything that she does. Levi ben Ruth, Mordechai ben Neshama Shira, for success, peace of mind, happiness, parnasat tova, clarity, health, kindness, and shlom bayit for all of them, B'ezrat Hashem. Kadosh Baruch Hu yivarech otam b'kol mikol kol. Also for a refuah shlema for Shmuel ben Chana, Leah bat Ezra, Chana bat Perel Tova, and Orit bat Ilana. Also a mazal tov and happy birthday for my dear mother, Doris bat Nesria, for refuah shlema for Doris bat Jora. Sorry, happy birthday to my mom, and also refuah shlema for my father, David ben Nesria, Levana bat Sarah, Dvora bat Mercedes, Elisheva Chaya bat Sarah. Mazal Tov also with Hashem for their brand new baby, Baruch Hashem. May they have much nachat. Her and her dear husband, our dear Talmid and good friend Betzalel ben Avraham. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu continue giving him siyata d'ishmaya in all of the things that he does, especially he's learning his Torah to complete the Shas many times. Also for a refuah shlema for Dvora bat Mercedes, Esther bat Zipora, Yochevet bat Serach bat Batya, Batya bat Sarah, and all of Am Yisrael B'ezrat Hashem will have refuah shlema, refuat hanefesh, refuat haguf. So Baruch Hashem, we're back here and continuing our series about the Chazon Ish, the famous Chazon Ish, Zchuto Tagen Aleinu. His famous Emunah V'Bitachon series about the Sefer is Emunah V'Bitachon, but the Sefer is really about the Jewish HaShkafa, the Jewish ideology. What is a Jew supposed to think? But in reality, as many have already commented on the shiur, this HaShkafa, this ideology, really applies to all of mankind, not just Am Yisrael, because you can see that this is not only the emet, but it's simply the only way to live if you want to live a good life. If you want to live a good life in this world, or then have a next world, you must do everything possible to get your mentality, your ideology to this point of what the Chazon Ish is talking about many years ago. Now, the Yetzer Hara, HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls him Ra. And when HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls somebody Ra, he's not exaggerating, he's not being something that is trying to get your attention in a fantastical way. He's simply telling you that's his job. That's his job. His job is to be Ra. Not because he benefits in any way from making you sin, but rather that's his job to be the obstacle in front of you. Just like if somebody, la'avdil, is trying to improve their physique and they go to the gym, if they want to improve their physique, then over time they're going to have to increase the pressure. So they're going to have to increase the weights. They cannot continue lifting 5 pounds every time they go to the gym for 10 years. If they want to improve their physique, they're going to have to increase the weight each time. And the fact that it's heavier is showing you that that's obviously where you need to be. Now, you can't put too much pressure on yourself, because then you will not be able to move. But on the other hand, if you do it too easy, then you won't improve. Such is the tafkid, the job of the Yetzer Hara, to give you the pressures on yourself that you can handle. Which means, if you have a difficulty in your life, that's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed it to happen, because He already knows that you can handle it. And the only reason why you are struggling with it is because of your disconnect to Ribono Shel Olam. Your disconnect, your misunderstanding of your tafkid, your misunderstanding of what your role is in the world. A young man sent me a question a few times about a issue that he had. And of course, many young people send me messages, questions, and so on. But the most common questions that I get from young people, and old people actually, is the whole issue of arayot. What to do with the issue of kedusha, of HaBRIT, girls. Sometimes the girls ask me about boys, and so on and so forth, because they're not married. Sometimes because they are married. The point is that people are struggling with this epidemic, but it's not corona. The issue is the whole issue of how to handle your yourself, your kedusha. Now, when it comes to sexuality, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is very, very clear about what's allowed and what's not allowed. If she is your wife, if he is your husband, you are allowed to be with each other during the time that the woman is pure, meaning that she has counted her clean days, she went to the mikveh, and then she's pure, and you're allowed to be with her. The Rambam writes clearly about how many times each person should be with their wife. If somebody is a regular average Joe, they could be with their wife as often as they want during that time that she's pure. But if someone is a Talmid Chacham, then they could limit it to once or twice a week, because they need to retain their energy. Plus, it's not the behavior of a Chacham to act like a rooster. Now, but that's assuming she's your wife, and that's permissible. On the other hand, what if she's not your wife? What if she's not your wife? Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, if you touch her, if you are intimate with her, if you're intimate with him, you're both going to get a punishment that you're going to wish for the Holocaust instead of this punishment. Such extremes. Such extremes. On one hand, I'm allowed to be with my wife, Ishtabach Shemo La'ad. If I'm an average guy, okay, every day, as long as she's pure. Let's say half the month. Okay? Okay, fine. I understand that. I can pray, there's benefits to not being with your wife every day for different medical reasons, psychological reasons, for marriage reasons, and so on. No problem. But how come there's such an extreme? What if she's not my wife? She's not my wife. How come I can't have a girlfriend? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says your girlfriend, your boyfriend, is going to get you to a place worse than Gehenom. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu says the kedusha of a person is what makes him a Jew. That is what distinguishes us from all of the other nations. Why? Because all of the other nations are allowed to be with each other as much and as often as they want, even during the period. But Am Yisrael, Am HaKadosh, we're different. Why? Because we are in essence, a different species, because we have a different role in the world. Now, a person that does not have the right ideology will have a very difficult time swallowing what I just said. In fact, they will reject it viciously. Because, what do you mean? On one hand, I have Gan Eden half the month. On the other hand, you tell me Kafakela is where I'm going. On the other hand, I'm going to Holocaust. What's the matter with you? Why can't I have like a middle ground, like once in a while? HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have once in a while. And that's why he says in Parashat Shmini, Vayomer Moshe, Ze hadavar asher tziva Adonai, ta'asu v'yireh alechem kevod Adonai. Moshe says to the nation, this is the thing that Hashem has commanded you to do, then the glory of Hashem will appear to you. This and not that. This Torah and not their Torah. This Kedusha and not their Tum'ah. This Emet and not their Shekel. Rule number one of Jewish ideology, there is only one Emet. There is no two Emets. There's no three Emets. And for those that say, well, what about the 70 faces of the Torah? Yes, it's 70 different facets of the same exact Emet. Just like a diamond, my father, God bless him, he's been a diamond dealer for as long, 50, 60 years. God bless him. He is the experts in the industry. When I remember I used to live in New York, I would come visit him on 47th Street. And some people would be in his office. They tell me, your father, God bless him, is the only person in the world that we know that you can show him a diamond in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, wake him up, he can tell you exactly what's wrong with it with the naked eye. This, that, what do you mean? You look at a diamond. To me, a diamond, I can't see nothing. I can see a piece of glass. I don't see nothing. Well, I don't have that eye. I don't have that skill. But someone that's been doing it for 6 decades can tell you the different facets of the diamond, whether it's a real diamond, whether it's something somebody made it in a lab, whether it's a CZ, which is completely glass, worth nothing, and so on and so forth. And even the diamond, you could see the different aspects of it. You could see the different parts of the diamond. One part is beautiful, one part not so much, and there's different ways that you can look at the same exact diamond. That's our emet. There's no 70 different emets, there's one emet. And a Jew must get themselves to the understanding that there is no other emet. If you are hearing anything contrary to the things that we are quoting from the Torah, you are listening to shekel, no matter where it's coming from. Guy with a beard or without a beard. A guy with glasses or without glasses. With longer hair than me or shorter hair than me. All make a difference. Why? Because we quote you the Torah. Now, Baruch Hashem, unlike some kofrim that used to be head rabbis of England, that wrote in a book that Judaism does not have a monopoly on the emet. That's what he wrote in a book, this Lord Sachs. He wrote that Judaism does not have a monopoly on the emet. Christianity has emet, Islam has emet. That's why big rabbanim in that time, when he wrote this kfirah, went against it, but unfortunately not strong enough. So he still gets the podium, he still gets a lot of kavod with organizations to be a keynote speaker, $50,000 just to come. Busha v'chirpa. The truth is, Rabotai, Judaism does have a monopoly on the emet. It does. Even if another religion may represent emet, you'll see that that emet stems from Judaism. It's not their own unique emet. They did not invent that emet. It did not stem from them. They just stole it from us. We have it. Anything that's any good in this world must have a source in the Torah. This too is one of the principles of the Jewish ideology. If a person thinks that they can find emet elsewhere that's absent from the Torah, that is a type of kfirah. That's heresy. Why? Because you are saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu shortchanged his people, shortchanges Torah which he created before his people. As the Gemara tells us in Masechet Chagigah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wrote the Torah 974 generations before he created the world, meaning before he created Am Yisrael. The Torah kadma la'Am Yisrael, kadma la'Olam, came before Am Yisrael, came before the world. And he looked, as the Zohar Kadosh says, he looked at the Torah ubara alma. He looked at the Torah as the blueprint and he created the world based on it. Meaning, he saw in the Torah, oh, there are rules here about kashrut. So I have to make kosher animals and not kosher animals, which Parashat Shmini tells you what's a kosher animal. It has 2 signs. chews its cud, splits its hooves. Oh, there's kosher fish, not kosher fish. Oh, so I have to make different types of fish. There are tens of thousands of different species inside the ocean. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu says they have to have both signs. They have to have the fins, and they have to have the kaskeset, what is it? Scales. Fins and scales. If they only have the fins, not kosher. But what if they only have the kaskeset, they only have the scales? The Gemara says no such thing. If it has scales, it must have fins. It must have fins. So what if you see a fish that's half cut off, and you see the part that has just the scales? Says you could be assured that that's a kosher fish, that the other half had the fins on it. But then some smart people came and said, yeah, but there's some fish in Africa that has only scales. Look, there's a mistake in the Torah. But then Rabotenu HaKadoshim, what they do? They say, oh, show us this fish. Show us this fish. They show us the fish. No. Show us this fish when he's alive, not when he's dead. When he's alive. Okay, it's in this ocean over here. They looked on the water. Oh, look at that. The fish has fins. And when you take him out of the water, his defense mechanism, just like a snake has the venom, just like the scorpion has the venom, just like the porcupine has the little things that he shoots out, the little arrows that he shoots out, and different animals have different defense mechanisms. Even the animals, like the dog, have certain amount of poison in their teeth. This fish, his defense mechanism is that he releases his fins. And that's why when you took it out, it looks like it had no fins. This means, Rabotai, that for 3,300 plus years, people have been toiling really, really hard to disprove the Torah and failing consistently. It's time that we accept it. Forget about them. They want to accept it, let them accept it. They don't want to accept it, let them not accept it. They have eyes, but they don't see. They have noses, but they don't smell. They have arms, but they can't touch. Their creators will be like them. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says about the idols. They have eyes, but they can't see. They have nose, but they can't smell. They have arms, they can't touch. And their creators will be like them. The idol worshippers will be like the idol. They can't see even though they have eyes. But how come we can't see? How come we fight so much against the emet? We have eyes. We choose not to see sometimes. Why? Because we don't really want to do tshuva sometimes. We like to sin sometimes. The Jewish ideology is dependent on the fact that the person will accept the emet whether he likes it or he dislikes it, whether she agrees with it or disagrees with it, whether they understand it or don't understand it. Just like you take an antibiotic from the doctor because you have an infection without understanding how the antibiotic really works. Oh, it looks like to use a piece of chalk. Why is this piece of chalk different than a different piece of chalk? Can't I just go take a piece of chalk from my teacher? It's cheaper. Can't take it over there. Maybe I just eat a piece of chalk and it's going to heal me. Why can't I just take my mom's piece of chalk? She was sick 6 years ago and maybe I could take a piece of chalk from her. Why do I have to take the piece of chalk that this doctor gave me? Because this piece of chalk has certain chemicals, and by the time you understand what these chemicals do and why they apply to your infection, you're already going to die 5 times. So be smart and listen to the expert. Now the problem is, Rabotai Yekarim, is that although everything I'm saying to you is simple logic, HaKadosh Baruch Hu rebukes us time and time again for not using it. We have human logic that HaKadosh Baruch Hu instilled in our minds that we use for everything. We do not go into a car and just drive aimlessly. We go into a car and we look at a map, or in today's world, a navigation system, in order to get to our destination. Why? Because we have a place to go to. We're not just going to drive around. We're not teenagers that have nothing to do. We want to go somewhere. We want to go to work. We want to go to eat. We want to go to a doctor. We want to go to somewhere. We have a destination. We don't just drive aimlessly. If we want to get from point A to point B, we have to have that destination in mind and the way to get to that destination before we start driving, not after. Because if we figure it out after, we could be wasting a whole lot more time. The same thing goes when we take medicine. If we get sick, chas v'shalom, we don't just take anything off the shelf. We don't just go to CVS or Walgreens, just take everything out. Let me just take this, and swallow all together. One of them is going to work out. No, most likely, you're not going to be sick anymore. You're going to be dead. We have to know what the diagnosis is, what's the problem, and then look at the instructions to see if it matches our diagnosis. If it's a simple flu, we can go find over the counter. There's enough instructions on the boxes. It can tell you this, that, the other thing, and so on and so forth. 5 different medicines for every different flu. If it's something more complicated, then you have to go to a doctor. The doctor is the expert, going to tell you what you have and what you need. He's going to prescribe you, give you exact instructions that you have no idea what they say because it has a bunch of big words you can't even pronounce. You give those instructions to somebody that actually knows what those instructions say. That guy says, oh, wow, okay, you need this, you need this, you need that. Okay, no problem. What is that? What do you mean no problem? It's just amoxicillin something. No, it's amoxicillin, sir. What's amoxicillin? You? No. Amoxicillin's an antibiotic. Oh, I thought you were cursing me. Okay, fine. How many? 500 mil. Oh, it's a lot. Why are you so generous? No, that's what the doctor said. He said 500 mg. That means 500 milligrams. Oh, okay. Once a day. No, he said 3 times a day. Oh, well, come on. You trying to kill me? No, you're that sick. You need 500 milligrams of amoxicillin 3 times a day. And that's why he wrote it on the piece of paper, because he knew you didn't know. If he would have just told you, take amoxicillin 3 times a day, 500 milligrams, you would have just did your own calculation. Said, no, you know what? Maybe 500 milligrams is too much. I'm going to go buy 100. 100 sounds cheaper. This guy's probably trying to make money out of me. And 3 times a day, what is he, crazy? He's probably trying to get me sicker so I come back to him. So you know what? I'm going to do it only once a week. I'm going to get this doctor. I'm going to prove him wrong. Next thing you know, the doctor has to show up to your funeral. What happened, doc? I thought you healed him. Yeah, I gave him the cure, but he didn't use it. We don't do that. Why? We listen to the experts. Because we use our brain. The same applies with everything in life. We use our logic, we use our brain in order to arrive at the right conclusion. And it's very easy for us. It's very easy for us to figure out that if I put certain ingredients together, a good food is going to come out. It's very easy for us to figure out if I drive a certain amount of certain speed, I will get to a certain destination. If I drive a different type of speed, I will get myself into trouble. If I go this way, this is a good place. If I go that way, it's a bad place. All of this logic we have. Where does this logic fail? This logic fails when it comes to living emet, living the truth. Living the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to live. How come it fails at the most critical time? I mean, technically, if you have enough emunah, and you have enough Torah, you get to a point where you don't get sick. And even if you get sick, nothing's going to happen to you. The Ramban says that the people that go to doctors, he himself was a doctor. He says people that go to doctors have no yirat shamayim. But he himself was a doctor. Why? How come? He said, no, it's not that nobody has yirat shamayim. It's that someone that has the real yirat shamayim understands who runs the world. He's not going to go to a doctor. Very, very few in the world are like that. Go to doctors. You're sick? Go to doctors. Don't play with fire. The Magid Mesharim, the angel that was the chavruta of Rabbi Yosef Karo, told him, Rabbi Yosef Karo is a chavruta, angel. An angel was a chavruta with Rabbi Yosef Karo, Baal Shulchan Aruch, the one that codified our law. We got Torah on Mount Sinai. We had oral Torah and written Torah. Then it was written, the oral Torah was written initially by, or the most amount of it was by Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the Mishnah. Even before him, Rabbi Yonatan ben Uziel already started it, but nonetheless, the Rabbi Yehuda Nasi wrote the Mishnah. Then we have the Gemara. Then the Rambam, 900 years ago, codified it into law, took the halachot out of the Gemara. Then Rabbi Yosef Karo, 500 years ago, took the laws from the Gemara, from the Rambam, and put it into applicable laws in that generation and moving forward. And then the poskim, for the rest of the last 500 years, applied it to different generations, to different things that came up. Meaning that there's never been a misstep. We have a direct transmission of the Torah from Mount Sinai all the way to today, with no changes whatsoever. Now, this Rabbi Yosef Karo wasn't just an average person. His chavruta was an angel. And the angel told him, in Magid Mesharim, he wrote in the book, angel told him, you have such kedusha and such Torah that if you were to eat a forbidden food, meaning a food that has poison in it, it wouldn't affect you. You know, in those days there was much more poison in food than today. Not just because of germs. There's actually more germs today than there was back then because of all the sins we make. But we're talking about, in those days, there was more snakes. Snake would lick the water, put some poison in it, and people would die that way. The angel told Rabbi Yosef Karo, if you drink water that right after the snake, right after the cobra, you guys are chavut on a drink. You guys drank a drink together, you had l'chaim together, nothing would happen to you. That's how much Torah you have. So that shows us, Rabotai, that the power of the neshama could literally affect the body in significant ways, which we'll learn a little bit more today. Now, when it comes to a life of a Jew, he has to understand, she has to understand, our Torah is not something that changes from generation to generation, from rabbi to rabbi, from community to community. Our Torah is simply the truth. It's the only truth. There is no challenge. There is no debate. There's no purpose for a debate. When you see rabbis like Rabbi Tovia Singer or the tzaddikim from Jews for Judaism debating the Christians, they're not debating the Christians for the sake of converting Christians. They're debating the Christians for the sake of the Jews that fell for the Christian's trap. Now, we have to understand that our goal in the world is to accept this Torah just like we received it from Moshe Rabbeinu himself. Moshe Rabbeinu came to our house and said, Joshua, here's the Torah. Sani, here's the Torah. Moshe, here's the Torah. Elchanan, here's the Torah. Netanya, here's the Torah. Here's the Torah. Joshua, here's the Torah. Here's the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu came to your house. Hey, you up? Okay, here's the Torah. Here you go. That's how you have to behave. And if Moshe Rabbeinu gave you the Torah, you're going to go against it? Moshe Rabbeinu, 10 amot, 7 meters tall, 20 feet, shows up to your house, spoke to Hashem face to face, shows up to your house. Hey, you ready to get Torah? We can say no. He just said right here, Zeh hadavar asher tzivah Adonai. This Torah, this I'm giving you, Mount Sinai, right? You just got it, here you go. You can say, no, but this one, Moshe, can you just let me go with that one? I have a girlfriend, can I stay with her? I have a boyfriend, can I stay with them? I don't like putting kisui rosh on. Can I just go on with the avodah zarah on my head? It's okay. It's okay, Moshe. As they say at the Bedin to people that convert, and Baruch Hashem, I had the merit to hear this many times. Rabbi Eliyahu ben Chaim, Shichyeh, says to the converts, he says, you know, if you violate Shabbat, Moshe Rabbeinu will kill you. He says to them every time. It never gets old. He says to them, he says, you know, Moshe Rabbeinu, if you violate Shabbat, Moshe Rabbeinu will kill you. He doesn't say, I'll kill you. He says, Moshe Rabbeinu will kill you. Because he killed somebody. He says in the Torah, Tzlofchad, he killed him. Call the converts, keep Shabbat, keep 2 Shabbats. 5 times a week I'll keep Shabbat. No, 1 time a week, it's fine. Why? You need to know. You need to know. You need to know. Why? It's like you just got the Torah Mount Sinai. That is the foundation of Jewish ideology. To understand that the Torah that we have is the same exact thing that we've had for over 3,300 years. Now, Rav Wasserman Alav Shalom writes in his Ikvedat Meshicha, in his Sefer that we actually have on our website, be'ezrathashem.org. For anyone that wants to download it for free, you subscribe to our website, it automatically gets emailed to you. If you already subscribed, you go to the ebook sections, and it's in English. It was translated, it was originally written in Yiddish, then it was translated to Hebrew and English. And we have the English version on our website. And he writes it, and this is at the time of the Holocaust. Rav Wasserman Alav Shalom was the Talmid Muvak of the Chafetz Chaim, was told what's going to happen from the Chafetz Chaim in the Holocaust before it happened, nearly 10 years before the Holocaust happened, and wrote in his Sefer that the generation at the time that is seeing so much trouble, so much anti-Semitism, would have a much better opportunity, would have a much better understanding of how to deal with things if the rabbis spoke up. In fact, he said even if the Gdolim would speak up. But it seems like the Gdolim of the generation closed themselves. Even though they didn't close themselves, they spoke. But he says maybe they're not speaking loud enough. They're speaking in their books, maybe not in their lectures, or maybe people just choose not to hear them because they're not speaking loud enough and making enough of a noise. And he says the problem with this is not that the people don't hear the truth, but rather this gives room for the Nevi'eh Sheker of the generation to speak out, for the false prophets of the generations to speak out, the Friedmans and the Goldbergs and the Dror Kasutos of the world and the Sachs of the world and the Mervises of the world and all of the other Reshaim on the list. They have an opportunity to speak. They're Sheker, and they're very good at it. They're the best, actually. He says those shakranim, those liars, they speak telling everybody, no, don't worry, you're a tzaddik, Hashem loves you no matter what, even if you drive on Shabbat, even if you're married to a goya, even if you're married to a goy, even if you eat taref, Hashem loves you, Hashem understands you, He understands what you can do, don't worry, you're going to be in Olam HaBa, the rabbi is going to save you, this one's going to save you, you're okay the way you are. Rav Wasserman Alav Shalom says these are the Nevi'eh Sheker. And what do you think? Nevi'eh Sheker were only at the times of the Nevi'im, of the prophets? Nevi'eh Sheker are in every generation. He says when we do not speak out loud enough, it gives power to the false prophets, because they are going to speak loud enough. And when they speak, they'll get 1 million views, not 500 or 5,000 views, or even 50,000 views. They'll get 1 million views for their false prophecy. And those false prophets come in the form of rabbis, they come in the form of Messianic Jews, which are really Christians in disguise. They come in the form of full-blown Christians and Catholics. They come in the form of Islam. They come in the form of Buddha. They come in the form of atheism. They come in the form of all types of heresy. And for anyone who is paying attention, you will see that in the last several weeks, especially these last maybe even 2 months, the amount of false prophecy, the amount of Nevi'eh Sheker that have taken the stage and have disseminated their venom to the people has increased dramatically. So much more garbage is being disseminated to the people. Now, part of that is the fault of the rabbis, that are not speaking out enough. Many rabbis are telling people, oh, stay inside, don't get sick. Okay, stay inside, don't get sick physically. What about spiritually? Okay, so he's inside watching YouTube all day, a false prophet. So now he's becoming a kofel. That's healthy. It was better off he was a dead tzaddik. We spoke about being inside. Okay, we're inside. What are we going to do now that we're inside? Some of these rabbis, they speak, they're so zealous about being inside. Some guy that lives in China made a whole thing. It went viral all over the internet. Every single joke passed this text message, this YouTube video. I don't know how many millions of views watched this guy. And he was zealous about, oh, I'm telling you, you have to stay inside. It's not a joke, this coronavirus. How come you didn't scream like that about Chilul Shabbat? You have to stay inside. It's pikuach nefesh. What? Chilul Shabbat is not pikuach nefesh? Married to a goya is not pikuach nefesh? Eating tarif is not pikuach nefesh? Cash advance and other flawed businesses full of corruption is not pikuach nefesh? How come you weren't so zealous about that, Mr. Rabbi? And all of his friends do the same thing. Stay inside to protect. No minyan, no tefillah, no. Okay, fine, you're right. But how come you're not as zealous about the pikuach nefesh of the neshama that stays forever? How come? This Rabotai Karim gives a stage to who? The Nevi'eh Sheker. Because the Nevi'eh Sheker never stop working. In fact, they work overtime. They keep giving out their false prophecy. Friedman and company is becoming more of a menace on a daily basis. Now his God has three pieces, like the Christians and the Catholics. He has a whole lecture about how God has three pieces.
Because we say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu. Two names for God. Hashem is God, Elokeinu is the God of creation. So it sounds like there's God who doesn't get involved in creation. And then there's Elokeinu, Elokim, is the God of creation. So of course it's the same God, but this God is divided. There's a part of him engages in creation, and there's a part of him that does not.
I don't even know where he belongs to. Can't say he's Chabad. Chabad doesn't believe in three gods. Some of them have lost their mind and maybe have idolized the Rebbe, Allah Shalom, but they don't believe in three gods. How come Chabad doesn't speak against them? Supposedly he's part of them. How come not a single person from Chabad is speaking against this Kufer Gamur? What about the other Reshaim that keep spewing their venom against everyone? No, you're being mean, it's not nice, you're full of hatred. What full of hatred? Full of hatred of the Reshaim? Yeah, David HaMelech was also full of hatred for the Reshaim. It's our obligation to be full of hatred against the Reshaim. If you don't hate the Reshaim, there's no chance that you're going to be a tzaddik. Rabbeinu Yonah in Sha'arei TeShuva says, if you want to be a tzaddik, you have to hate Reshaim. Obligation. Mitzvah from the Torah, hate Reshaim. We're not talking about Reshaim that they don't even know they're Rasha. Talk about somebody that knows. How come they're not speaking against them? How come they're giving these people a stage? How come already an article came out 7-8 years ago about Sachs being a Kufer Gamur, writing that Judaism doesn't have the whole truth, or that Adam v'Chava was a parable, or the Yetziat Mitzrayim was a parable?
But what about Adam and Eve? I mean, what do you think about that? Is that symbolic or literally?
Well, Adam and Eve is clearly a parable because there was no first human, and there may have been a mitochondrial Eve, but I mean that was somewhere else and in another country, and besides the wench is dead. Exactly. Yeah. So no, I mean Adam and Eve are really, I mean if you trace it back 6,000 years ago, obviously the Bible is telling us the story about the first dawn of civilization. I mean, there was art 25,000 years before
Adam and
that.
Eve is symbolic.
Yeah.
But the parting of the Red Sea, I mean, how do you decide which bits are symbolic?
Very
and which are not?
simple. The rabbis in the 10th century laid down the following principle. If a biblical narrative is incompatible with established scientific fact, it is not to be read literally.
How come he still gets a stage by Orthodox Union and other big Jewish organizations? How come Ephraim Goldberg is getting the stage along with him, two Reshaim together? Wanted to invite a Catholic missionary to a synagogue with 1,000 families. How come he's still getting the stage? Dror Kasuta tells people to go smoke marijuana before they learn Torah if it gives them nice chizuk.
I'm holding grass, weed, marijuana as medicine, as drug that is a real medicine, and you need to know how to use it and when to use it. And if your senses are strong and pure and powerful, so you can know it about yourself, you can have a self-awareness to know if it's building you or destroying you, if you're using it for a good cause or if your evil inclination is using you to kick you down to sadness and to many lackings that it can bring. Person now in a certain stage of his life is using a certain drug in a good way that is building him, that is supplying something good for him in his life, still, that's my thought, I think that it is only waking him up.
How come he's still getting the stage? How come nobody's speaking against it? How come I have to speak against it every time? People think like I like this, I hate this more than anything else in the world. But this is Torah, Rabotai. Rule number 1, stay away from sin. Then do mitzvot. Why? Because if your mitzvot are full of averot, you're still going to go to Gehenom anyway. The point is, Rabotai, is we have to know Jewish ideology doesn't play games, it's not joke. It's not something here, something there. It's not shakshuka. Every time it tastes different. For anyone who doesn't know, shakshuka is a Middle Eastern dish with some eggs. Forget it. Very tasty. Anyway, Rabotai, it's very important that we know that speaking against the wicked is an obligation, because when we don't, we simply are allowing them to continue growing without anyone speaking against them, and that is one of the reasons why HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to destroy the Bet HaMikdash when he did. On Mondays and Thursdays you pray differently than you do the rest of the week. You add some parts to your prayer and your siddur. And one part of it, you see, it's a Gemara. It starts with Abaye. Abaye says, Anshe Emunah Avadu. Abaye says, men of truth are lost. The Gemara in Masechet Hagigah says, what does it mean? What is Abaye talking about, men of truth are lost? It says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu looked at the world at the time of the Bet HaMikdash. He says there's no men of truth, no men that will fight for the truth anymore. That means they're not going to do tshuva the ordinary way. I must destroy the Bet HaMikdash to get them to do tshuva. If they don't learn from the rabbis, I have to teach them, Hashem says. If we don't speak against Reshaim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to make things worse. And that's why there's good news and bad news. The good news is that this coronavirus, although the numbers continue to increase, seems to be somewhat under control. In my opinion, I think that this whole quarantine type of life is probably a month and a half away from being over. It's my opinion. Don't quote me on it, I'm simply quoting my opinion. The rest of what I said is not opinion. And the reason why is not necessarily because the disease is going to miraculously go away. It may go away. But I simply think that, like I told you guys last week, people are going to arrive at the conclusion that they have to leave the house. Because if they don't, they're surely going to die. Not of coronavirus, of starvation. Because right now people are seeing, oh, okay, so some people go outside, some people don't go outside. Some people that go outside get infected, some people go outside don't get infected, which means that you're not guaranteed to get infected if you go outside. From the look of it, downstairs everyone's on vacation. I've never seen so many people in the streets here in Florida. Everyone's on vacation on their bicycles as if this is Bahamas. Everyone's on a little their own vacation. So apparently they're not infected. Not everybody goes outside and gets infected. So people that are in quarantine right now in their house are thinking, oh look, these people in Florida, these people here, these people there, they're going outside, they're not getting infected. So I'm not guaranteed to get infected. I'll just make sure not to touch anybody. And not touch anything. And even if the people get infected, not everybody that gets infected dies. You have over 2.2 million people have gotten infected. Not 2 million people died. Baruch Hashem. Less than 200,000 people died. The high percentages are in places like Italy, Spain, France. Whereas places like Israel, Baruch Hashem, have very low numbers. Those first three countries that I mentioned to you have nearly a 10% death rate. 10% of the people that get it die. Whereas places like America, places like Israel, and other places around the world don't have that high of a death rate, Baruch Hashem. Much lower. Israel being fantastic, Baruch Hashem, may continue. America a little lesser, but nonetheless still have a very high success ratio of people getting out of it. People are going to do the numbers. Look, even the people that go outside and get infected, they don't all die. But if I stay home, surely I'm going to die. Why? I'm going to run out of money. I had enough money to save for, let's say, a month to stay at home. 2 months of staying home. I ran out of money. The government's not going to send me money for everything. Maybe they're going to force the mortgage company not to pay the mortgage anymore. But what about food? They're not sending me food. What, the $1,200 check they're proposing? Okay, that's going to buy a week worth of food. So I'm going to fast for the next 9 weeks. They're not going to pay the electric. So I'm going to live in darkness too while I'm fasting. They're not going to pay for the phone. So I'm going to be alone, not even on nothing, in darkness. You want me to fast? You want me to not communicate with anyone in the world? Just die quietly. We don't want to hear you. If we don't hear you, you didn't die. What do you think? This is China? No, people are going to do their counting, their logic in their head and say, listen, I'm going to run out of money, or I ran out of money. I have to go back to work. And that's what people are going to do. That's my opinion. Now the question is, as a side note, does anybody know why Italy, Spain, and France happen, Chas v'shalom, it's never happened, happen to have the highest death tolls, percentage-wise? Anyone want to take a shot at it? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to us in Sefer Bereshit, Parashat Noach, someone who spills the blood of a man within a man, his own blood will be spilled. Teaching us that anyone that spills the blood of a man within a man, which is not regular blood, but rather the blood within a man, meaning the seed, his own blood will be shed. Showing us that the issur of wasting seed is both on the Jews and the non-Jews. And even the sages that have a debate among them of whether this changed later on in Mount Sinai, saying that maybe it's no longer forbidden for the non-Jews as it was at the time of Noach, it's still viewed as disgusting. Either way, you're in bad shape. Most of the sages say that it's forbidden for all of mankind to waste seed. But there are a few sages, Kvodam bimkomam, they're all respectable giant sages, and they say maybe It's not forbidden for them the same way that it's forbidden for Jews, but it's still frowned upon by Hashem, and who wants to be viewed as disgusting in the eyes of his Creator? Every time Hashem looks at him and says, disgusting. Who wants that? Like you look at a dead animal in the middle of the street, you say, disgusting. Imagine Hashem looks at you and says, disgusting. Who wants that? Who wants to be that? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying it's disgusting. Who wants that? Nobody. So whether it's death penalty or it's viewed as disgusting, either way, it's no good. The point is, but that's just a minority of sages. Most sages say it's asur gamur. It's completely forbidden. The point is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu already told us in Parashat Noach. They asked Rav Sternbach, Shichyeh, how come HaKadosh Baruch Hu expected the people to obey this law without him giving them the Torah yet? How come he expected them to obey this law? He didn't give them a Torah yet. There was no scroll yet. There was no Mount Sinai yet. It's Parashat Noach. This is hundreds and hundreds of years before Moshe Rabbeinu. It's hundreds of years before Avraham even. Only guy that believed in God is Noach. The rest of them were all types of crazy people. They believed in God, but they also worshipped idols and did all types of other things. How come? Rav Sternbach Sheikhye says the following. He says, because this, just like murder, is pure logic. Just like you did not need to have the Torah to know not to murder, you don't need to have the Torah to know not to waste seed. Just like you use your logic to know that before you go somewhere you need to know where you're going, you know that you're not allowed to waste seed. Why? Because there's a certain thing in your brain that tells you you're forbidden from doing it. Now, both the Jews and the non-Jews are forbidden from wasting seed. But many of the non-Jews, and unfortunately many Jews, don't listen to the Torah. In fact, many of them don't even know it says it. So what did they do? When the quarantine started in Italy and in the other countries, a certain group of Reshaim that run one of the biggest pornography companies in the world announced, from today on you can download pornography for free. And on that day, my dear friend from Eretz Israel said this to me. He says, if you look at the numbers, on that day they announced it was the highest level of death since the beginning of this virus. Anyone that thinks this is a coincidence, I have a bridge to sell you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says it's forbidden, and not only do you not comply with this rule, but instead you publicize the opposite. Go, stay at home, make more sins. Now, for those weak neshamot that don't like to hear negative things because it hurts their little puny heart, you should know this is an obligation. Not only an obligation to teach this as part of Jewish ideology, but also an obligation of teaching Torah in general at a time like this. Where do we learn it from? The Rambam. The Rambam in Ilchot Ta'aniyot. In chapter 1, Halakha number 1, he says the following: מצוות עשה מן התורה לזעוק ולהריע בחצוצרות על כל צרה שתבוא על הציבור, שנאמר על הצער הצורר איתכם והרעותם בחצוצרות, כלומר כל דבר שיצר לכם כגון בצורת ודבר והרבה כיוצא בהן, זעקו עליהם והריעו. The Rambam writes, Halakha, not opinion. Just like he received the Torah from Moshe Rabbeinu himself. It is a positive scriptural commandment, meaning this is from the written Torah. It's a positive scriptural commandment to cry out and to sound the trumpets in the event of any difficulty that arises which affects the community. As it says in the book of Numbers, chapter 10, verse 9, when you go out to war against the enemy who attacks you, and you sound the trumpets. This commandment is not restricted to such a limited scope. Rather, the intent is, whenever you are distressed by difficulties, such as famine, plague, locusts, or the like, cry out to God because of them and sound the trumpets. Now the question is, what's the point? Why do I need to sound the trumpet? What is the trumpet? What are we, the Hindus? Make a lot of noise like they did a few weeks ago, think that the coronavirus is going to go away? Why are we sounding the trumpets? Okay, coronavirus came. Two. Okay, it's still here. Two again. It's still here. Let's say every rabbi came out of his keilah, instead of doing shiurim about stay at home, he comes out with a shofar. No, so what? Corona's still here. What does it mean? The Rambam elaborates. Halakha number 2. This practice is one of the paths of TeShuva. For when a difficulty arises and the people cry out to God and sound the trumpets, everyone will realize that the difficulty occurred because of their evil conduct, their and not somebody else's. As the prophet Jeremiah in chapter 5 verse 25 states, your sins have turned away the rains and the harvest climate. This realization will cause the removal of this difficulty. He says you sound the trumpets to warn the people. This coronavirus is because of you. You and not him. Don't blame the religious and don't blame the secular. Blame yourself. If everyone blamed themselves, then we have some hope. What if we don't sound the trumpet? And by sounding the trumpet, it doesn't literally only mean sounding the trumpet, but as Rav Wasserman writes in Ikvita de Meshicha, he says it's not just sounding the trumpet, speaking out against it. We have coronavirus, and we even have another virus in Brazil right now that's even worse than coronavirus. You haven't heard about it yet because we're busy with corona. 100% fatality. Hashem Yishmo ve'etzil. You have things much worse in the world. It's our job to scream to the people. It's your sins that are causing it. You, the Jews, you, the Goyim. You did it. Do tshuva. What if we don't? What if we say, no, don't tzaddikim, it happens, it's nature, every so often a virus comes to the world, there was the pig virus and the bird virus and this virus and that virus, it's another virus. The Rambam continues, so we're not confused. The Rambam, if you read him, you don't get confused. Why? He's as clear as day. He says the following: Aval im lo yiz'aku velo yariu. Conversely, should the people fail to cry out to God and sound the trumpets, and instead say, what has happened to us is merely a natural phenomenon, and this difficulty is merely a chance occurrence, it happens. This is the cruelest conception of things. He says this, Rabotai, is achzariyut. Achzariyut is translated to cruel, but trust me when I tell you, it's not enough. Achzariyut is vicious. That's what achzar means, is vicious. To tell people this is a happenstance, to tell people this happens in the world, to tell people we're fighting against a enemy that we can't see. like as if we don't know where it came from, like it didn't come from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Rambam writes, this is vicious. Which causes them, why is it vicious? It causes them to remain attached to their wicked deeds. They don't do tshuva then. Because they don't know it's because of them. They don't know it's because of Chilul Shabbat, Chilul Hashem, Zera Levatala, crooked businesses, all types of filthy behaviors. They don't know it's that. They think it's a virus. They're going to listen to Trump and Fauci and Pucci and Cucci and all of these people on the news every 5 minutes. Why? Because they're on the news every 5 minutes. No, it's all they do. Instead of listening to Shurei Torah to do tshuva, they're listening to people. They're telling them about the news, how many people died, and how many people didn't die, and how many ventilators we have, and how many air conditioners we don't have. He says this is cruel. It's cruel. Who's he talking to? He's talking to the rabbis. He's talking to the leaders. It's vicious not to tell them to do tshuva. Thus, this time of distress will lead to further distresses. And that's the bad news. Although coronavirus seems to be under control, I am afraid that if more people do not do tshuva, a lot more, don't do tshuva in the coming weeks, by the time this thing is under control, by the time this thing settles down and is out of the news, Rabotai, the Torah promises us a horrible, horrible promise. Things will get worse next time. And that's what the Rambam writes here. If we don't scream to the people to go do tshuva and they don't do tshuva, we are cruel. We are vicious. Why? Because they won't do tshuva because of us. And because of that, the situation will get worse. Where do we learn it from? The Rambam writes, we learn this from Leviticus, chapter 26, verse 27 and 28. Ve'alachtem imi bekeri, ve'alachti gam ani imachem bechamat keri. כלומר שאביא עליכם צרה כדי שתשובו אם תאמרו שהיא קרי אוסיף לכם חמת אותו קרי. The Rambam writes, we see this in Leviticus, where Kadosh Baruch Hu says to us clearly, if you shall remain indifferent to me, meaning treat the things that are happening to the world, the rebukes, the hurricanes, the viruses, the collapse of the economy, as a happenstance, you're indifferent to it, you think it's nature, I will be indifferent to you with a vengeance. The implication of this verse, the Rambam writes, is when I bring difficulties upon you so that you shall repent, you shall do tshuva, and you say it's a chance occurrence, I will add to your punishment as an expression of vengeance for that indifference to divine providence, for treating divine providence as nothing, as just chance. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says you get additional punishment. For this we scream, for this we cry on the way here. We see, Baruch Hashem, a lot of people doing tshuva. Every day, shtabach shimo, more people are doing tshuva. Now that we have new channels in Portuguese and Spanish and French and German and Korean, more people from different languages, shtabach shimo, are doing tshuva just in the last couple of weeks. But it's not enough. It has to become in the thousands. It has to become in the thousands. There are entire communities that are more scared of coronavirus than they are scared of Chilul Shabbat. They're more scared of coronavirus than they're scared of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Rambam and the Rav Wasserman says, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself says, and I'm just repeating, it's all the fault of the leaders that are not rebuking the people. Those that are rebuking the people, Ashechem Ashech Elkechem. Where even if the people don't listen to you, you did your job. But those that are not rebuking, the entire punishment will come on you and your family. Why? Because of you, people are dying. You are the murderer, the Torah says. Why? You knew. And you chose otherwise. Yeah, but I didn't want to scare people. But the Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to scare them. What, you're more merciful than Hashem? 2.5 million people that we know about are infected. Probably 20, 30 million are infected. Just unreported. In India, they're reporting something like 4,000 people infected. My contacts in India that I talk to every single day telling me that you have to wait on a 2-mile line just to get food. Because there's so many people there infected. You're not allowed to leave the house. What? They're not allowed to leave the house because 3,000 people out of 2 billion people are infected? Any jokester actually believe these numbers? They can't get food. Why? Because of 3,000 people? 3,000 people die every day over this from drinking urine of the cows. Why are they so scared of coronavirus? If only 3,000 people out of 2 billion died. Millions are infected. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to be scary right now. You don't want to be scary? Why, you're more merciful than Hashem? Where's your Torah? Where's your Yirat Shamayim? Where's your leadership? That's HaShkafa. HaShkafa, Rabotai, is to tell people what they need to hear. Not necessarily always at the same time that they want to hear it. Jewish HaShkafa is telling people what they need to hear because they're not doing it on their own. You, the leader, if you're the leader of a community or you're the leader of your own family, you, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people, you can tell somebody, do it. Share with your friends, do it. You don't have speaking skills? Let me do it. Share this lecture. Share the other lectures we made. Share the other movies we made. Get people to do TeShuva. Save your own skin by saving them. Don't stay a mute, because then we all fall. You cannot be like the idol worshippers who have eyes but choose not to see. They have arms but they can't touch. They have noses but they can't smell. Don't be like them. The Chazon Ish writes in the next section, after he talked to us about the details and the mechanics of the eye and how beautiful and miraculous it is, he writes, what good are eyes, arms and legs if they lie like dead bodies devoid of a neshama, devoid of a ruach chaim? What's the point of all these body parts, these arms, these legs, these eyes, if they can't move? Why they can't move? Because no ruach chaim. There's no neshama, there's no soul, there's no spirit. So he, meaning Hashem, breathed life into man, the secret of which eludes us to the extreme. No matter how much you investigate the body, we will never understand the neshama. But we know, and all human beings know, that this spirit exists, and that it's due to it that we exist. We call it by different names: spirit, soul, nefesh, ruach, neshama. All these names are references to something we can feel only dimly, for we possess no knowledge of its essence. Anyone that looks into the medical world will see an endless amount of research papers done about every part of the body. Only recently did they discover that the biggest organ in the body is not what they thought. People thought different parts were bigger at different times. As science advanced, they realized, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's the lungs, maybe it's the brain, maybe it's all types of things. And with endless amount of research, literally billions and billions of dollars, they could not even realize that the biggest organ in the body is the skin. And there's an endless amount of research done on every part of the body. Millions of pages written about the eyes, millions of pages written about the heart, millions of pages and man hours spent on the brain and the arms and the fingers and the sensors and the different cells and the DNA and the blood and the different types of blood and even the fingernails. Endless amount of research is done on different body parts you've never even heard of. Endless amount of research and money spent on different body parts you don't want to hear about unless you're in trouble. Like, who actually spends any time reading about the urethra unless they have some type of infection? Or the anal canal unless they have some type of pain? No one wants to read about this. But yet the researchers have spent countless hours and money researching these body parts. Why? Because many people have problems with them. Countless dollars was spent learning about your nails that you just cut and discard. And if you're a righteous Jew, you discard them either in the toilet and flush it, or you burn them. But you definitely do not discard them in the garbage can or on the floor. Point being, there's an endless amount of research, endless amount of money spent on your fingernails that you care less about. Even money spent on your hair. Do you know how much money they've spent and man hours they've spent learning about the hair follicles? And how they've discovered that what Kadosh Baruch Hu told Job is 100% true. That if two hairs were to feed off of the same canal in your head, you simply would not be able to see. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Job, you thought that I made a mistake, that I thought that Eyov, which is Job in Hebrew, is Oyev, which is the same letters just spelled differently, meaning enemy. Do you know how many hairs you have on your head? Do you know how many stars are in the universe? Hashem says, I know. And I have a name for each one of them. Each one of the stars in the universe has a name. Each one of the hairs on your head has a name. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, if two hairs on your head would feed their food, which is sweat, from the same hole, you would go blind instantly. Have you ever seen such a thing happen? No. If I'm not going to make a mistake between the two hairs, you think I'm going to make a mistake with your name? You know how much money they spent researching the hair club for men, and the hair club for this, and the hair club for that? All types of money they've spent on the hair because people are so into their looks, and they spend an endless amount of money doing all types of surgeries to make themselves look like monsters. You know how much money these people spend? It becomes an addiction of plastic surgery just to look like a monster. But they keep doing it because they think they look good. You know how much money they spent, and you know how much money the doctor spent in order for him to be the doctor, that this woman, this poor woman, is going to become a monster through his hands? Should call them butchers, not doctors. But you know how much money they spent on doing research? They don't intend on making them look like monsters, but sometimes it happens. Sometimes a woman comes to do a surgery and instead she gets a disease instead because of something wrong in the implant, something wrong in the surgery. I went for an elective surgery. My whole entire body changed because of it. Ishtabach Shimo La'ad, best thing that ever happened to me. Endless amount of pain for 16 years. Ishtabach Shimo. But the reality is, Rabotai, do you know how many years that doctor that did the original surgery on me told me he was in? I told him, is this surgery a difficult surgery? He said, no, I've been doing this for 16 years. He mocked me. He goes, what, you questioning me? I've been doing this for 16 years. I do 3-4 a day. I do 3-4 a day. It's easy business. Each time somebody comes in, a few $1,000s, easy. Easy. For him it's easy. He's just cutting. I'm the one who has to live with it. Baruch Hashem. You know how much money people spent on the research that he relied on to fail miserably? Endless amount of money. And yet, Rabotai Yekarim, how much money is spent on investigating the soul? Where regardless of, let's say you discovered all the secrets to the hair, and how to grow it, and how to remove it, and so on. Let's say you discovered the secrets to skin, to remove acne, and all types of other things that you don't want on your skin. Let's say you discovered all of the secrets of the heart, and you could put all types of things in there to make sure the guy lives longer, and so on and so forth. Let's say you discovered all the different types of bacteria that go into the foot, so it doesn't affect your nails, you don't have to remove the nail, and you're really good at that. Is that going to make someone live forever? No. No money is spent on the soul, even though the soul is the engine to it all. There's no research on the soul outside of Am Yisrael, outside of the Avrichim that learn Torah all day, outside of the regular Yehudim like you that learn Torah every day, outside of the righteous Noahites that learn Torah every day. No research on the soul. The engine to it all. The only thing that moves it all. Where even if you fix the nails, you fix the heart, you fix the brain, you fix the hair, you still don't have a guarantee you'll live another day. But no money is investigated into that. In truth, the Chazon Ish says there are many enthralling and wondrous parts in the person's body. The limbs, the joints, the accommodations of the spirit of life within a material body, the makeup of flesh and bone, the circulation of blood in the arteries that enable life, and blood itself, which is the life of man. All these different things that people invest their life, their careers, searching these things, the secret of your blood. Why does it clot here? Why doesn't it clot? How come it doesn't clot on its own? How come it knows? How does it know to clot only when you have a wound? How come it doesn't clot inside? And if it does, Shem Yachem, you die. If you have a clot, you have a cut, immediately blood comes out, but then the blood knows, like someone told it. Send him a text message, better than WhatsApp. It's the type of text message you have to answer, or else the person's going to die. Blood, start clotting now. Yeah, but I wasn't clotting the whole time. Why do I have to start clotting now? I'm tired. No. Clot now. Why? You're going to die if you don't. If the blood doesn't start clotting immediately, a person's going to die. That's why people that have a problem with blood clotting, they have to take special medicine. And they also have to be very, very careful not to get cuts. How does the blood know? What does it have a brain, the blood? You ever see a blood with glasses? Walking around, hey, what's up, man? What are you working on? No, I'm clotting. You're still doing that stuff? Nah, I moved on. How does it know? How does it know how to clot? How does it know to clot? How come it doesn't decide to clot just on a Tuesday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon just because it feels like it? Because if it clots, it's a heart attack. If it clots, it's a brain aneurysm. When people have a brain aneurysm, when they have a septic hemorrhage in their head, what does that mean? That means that out of all of these tiny, tiny microscopic veins that you have in your brain, a tiny little speckle of a blood, we're not even talking about like a big, or even something you could see with the naked eye, a tiny little speckle of a blood decide I'm going to clot. Not the whole blood, not everything. Tiny, tiny portion that you need a microscope to see decide to clot. Rest of the blood's going fine, working like a soldier. But this tiny little thing, the Rasha is dead. Same thing happens with other things. How does the blood know? When? Who? What? When? Where did it learn it? Did it go to university? All of these wonderful things that you see, your blood circulates through your entire body. The blood that you have in your finger right now, in a matter of seconds, it will be in a different body part. Throughout the day, it will be throughout your entire body. Throughout your entire body. So there's no blood that's more special than the other. All of them get to give you life everywhere. The different arteries, the different holes that you have in your body, if they're shut for a second, it's a heart attack. I remember I had a client in Kansas, told me that he had all types of stents put in his heart and so on. I looked it up and I saw he literally had to have his heart opened. Why? In order to allow the heart to continue functioning. We all take it for granted. We walk around like it's supposed to function, like it owes us something. All of this beautiful stuff that happens in your body has no end. But the Chazon Ish says something more critical. It says, even after man was created, his existence is still not ensured, for his life is dependent on a regular supply of food to renew the body's blood. All the food that you eat either turns to blood or to waste. The waste is excreted from your body, and the blood goes through your body. Whether it's ice cream or it's steak or it's an apple, everything turns to blood or waste. Doesn't matter what you eat. Who told the apple to turn to blood? Why can't it turn into, like, I don't know, maybe like ice cream? Maybe your heart's hungry, wants ice cream for a change. It's hot outside. How come it doesn't turn to ice cream? Everything turns to blood. And if it's not blood, it gets thrown out of the body. Obviously, there's other things, there's sugars and so on, but nonetheless, the waste is excreted from the body. But you need this food in order to continue living. The Creator provided grains, wine and oil, other plants, and countless types of fruit trees, each one of them incorporating different qualities that can provide nourishment to man, heal his body, nurture him, and enable him to live on this earth. Mankind has already managed to study the great wisdom in the structure of every plant, of every kind, all of which bear witness to their Creator and to His endless wisdom. So you see here, Rabotai, that the Chazon Ish tells you we're spending an enormous amount of time researching plants, researching rocks, researching weather systems, researching water, body parts, and so on, but yet we know nothing about the engine that moves it all, which is your soul, your spirit, your neshama. Now, to think of it, you got to look at it this way. If there was a partnership in a business, and one day one of the partners shows up to work, to their business, and he sees the place has been emptied out. The cash from the safe is gone, the computer is disconnected and removed, all that's left is some big furniture, but all of the goodies are gone. What does he think initially? We got robbed. Oh no! But right before he calls the cops, he gets a phone call from his partner. And immediately he said, "Hey, where are you? Where are you? We got robbed." He goes, No, we didn't get robbed. What do you mean? We didn't get robbed. No, I took it. What? What do you mean you took it? I took everything. What's the next question? Why? Why'd you take everything? And now you have the audacity to call me and tell me about it? And the partner says, I took it because after I've been investigating the books of the company with a private investigator, a forensic accountant, I discovered that you have been stealing from the company for the last few years. But I've been hiding it under false expenses. And I realize you've been stealing a lot more, and I'm tired of it. So I'm simply taking mine. If you would like, we can go to court, and then I'll press charges and you'll end up going to jail too. Or you can just shut up, go start something new, and pretend like nothing ever happened and the business doesn't belong to you. Which one do you want? The partner doesn't show, but he has a good reason. You did wrong first. You just thought you're never going to get caught. The Gemara says there are three partners to a neshama. There are three partners to a person. The body is the father and the mother. The father provides the seed, the mother provides the egg. But if the seed and the egg were looked at independently, the seed would make you vomit as something filthy and putrid, and the egg would not be something you would identify as anything good either. If the seed combine 5 million times, doesn't mean anything, no matter what science is going to tell you. Why? HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to join the partnership and put the neshama in there. And the Gemara Masechet Nida, page 13, says that there's a malach named Laila that takes every seed that comes out of the man and brings it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Flies up to heaven and says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ribono shel Olam, this seed, what shall be with it? Will it live or die? Meaning, will it combine with the egg and become a baby, or be wasted and gone to nothing? And if it will live, will it be a male or female? Will it be rich or poor? Will it be tall or short? Will it have blue eyes, green eyes, brown eyes or black eyes? Will it be albino? Will it have blonde hair? Will it have black hair? Will it have nice teeth? What kind of job will it have? Is it going to get married or stay alone? Every single thing is decided at that moment. That the husband is together with his wife in that meeting between Ribono shel Olam and his shliach, the malach, named Laila. For all of us to think that we are not rich because we don't have a good job, we are not married because we don't have good luck, we are not beautiful because our parents are such and such, kfirah, heresy. All of that was decided before you were even a thought in your parents' brain, before they knew you existed, when you were still just potential. Akol midei shamayim chutz mirat shamayim. Everything is from heaven except the fear of heaven. Whether you're rich or you're poor, or you're married or you're single, or you're male or you're female, whether you're alive or dead, whether you have good teeth or bad teeth like mine, whether you're good looking or ugly, whatever you are, HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided that before you even knew you. And that meeting, when he decided, I'm going to partner with these two people and put a neshama in this new being. Now what happens if a Kadosh Baruch Hu became a partner? Ishtabach Shemo, 9 months later, normally, baby comes out. He's crying and everyone's laughing. You know what the baby's trying to, what he's saying, right? Why are you all laughing? I was having a good time over there. What are you guys laughing about? What are you all laughing about? I'm crying, you're laughing. What kind of people are you? I want to go back inside. Why? He was learning Torah. What was he doing? You think he doesn't want to be next to us? He's learning Torah with the Malach. Knew the entire Torah. But now that he's out, he's crying because he didn't want to come to this world. He wanted to continue learning Torah. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu pushed him out. You have to. Be'al kolcha. Against your will you will live, and against your will you will die. That's what the Mishnah in Avot says. Now the person is here. This little person every day, Shtabach Shemo, grows up to be a bigger person, a bigger girl, a bigger boy. Little by little they become a man or a woman. What happens if one day the partner called HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides he doesn't want to show up? What happens if one day, the father already did his business? He contributed his partnership. The mother already did our business. She contributed our partnership. They're doing other things now to raise the kid. But what if Chas v'Shalom, the partner in Shamayim, decides, I'm not going to show up to work today. In fact, I'm going to take everything that's mine. Hashem yishmor v'yatzil. No partnership in the world can save that boy or girl. Why? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says you've been stealing. And I've reviewed your account and I'm tired of it. You've been stealing from me. Eating and drinking without saying a bracha. Desecrating my Shabbat. Desecrating the brit that I gave you. Desecrating the kedusha of a bat Israel, walking around immodestly and making the world sin because of you. Walking around like some idol worshiper instead of the daughter of a king. So I'm not going to show up to work anymore. I don't want this partnership. No one's going to be happy about it. Especially that person. Now, none of us ever want to experience this, not directly or indirectly. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to us, I also don't want you to experience it directly or indirectly. But you have to know that when I became a partner, we signed the contract. Whether you like it or not, whether you agree to it today or not, you've benefited from that contract. Therefore, that means you want that contract to continue. You can't say, why'd you bring me to the world? I didn't ask to. First of all, you did. You did ask to come to this world. And second of all, even if your argument is, I didn't ask to the world, or I don't remember it, still, did you want the contract to continue? Or you want it to just end? Because if you don't want the contract, I'll just end it, Hashem says. So you want to live. Okay, so you want the contract to continue. Okay, so that contract has terms. What are those terms? They start with the letter T in English, or Taf in Hebrew. And the rest of it is Ora. Torah is Ora'ah, instructions, the contract, the agreement. You comply with the Torah, you have nothing to worry about. Yeah, what if a person that already lived the Torah, kept the Torah, but he died also? He didn't die. His neshama just transferred from this body to a much better place. We don't cry about tzaddikim for them. We cry about tzaddikim for us. Because if they're a tzaddik or tzaddikah and they died, They're in Olam HaBa. They're getting the schar. They're getting all the reward for their sacrifices for 70, 80, 90, 100 years. What are you crying about? They're in Gan Eden. We cry about ourselves that we don't have them in the world to benefit from. That's what we cry about. And the Gemara in Masechet Moed Katan says, a Jew that does not cry about a kosher Jew that died can get punished by having their kids die. Why? Because the opportunity to do TeShuva is when kosher Jews pass this world, is Hashem is rebuking the whole world. And if you want the people to know about it, you should cry about that kosher Jew. And if you can't get yourself to cry, at least feel bad about it. Do something. Why? Because there's less kedusha in the world. Now, Rabotai Yekarim, we've spent an enormous amount of time researching all of these things, these body parts. But unfortunately, we know very little about the soul. Now, if you notice, the soul is very different than anything else. A stone, no matter whether it rains or shines, remains unchanged. No matter if a year passes or 100 years pass, remains unchanged. How long does a stone live for? Permanently. Doesn't die. May break, may change form, but it stays alive. Stays whatever it is. Now, once you put some part of a nefesh into something, that system changes immediately. For example, when you put it into a plant or a tree, now although that's nowhere near the same as a human being or even an animal, still nonetheless, this tree is going to last a really long time if no one disturbs him and no one cuts him down, but it's not permanently. There are some trees that are 500 years old or even older in the world. But nonetheless, it's not permanent. Already we see that this existence, this engine, is not supposed to be here permanently. It's here for a certain amount of time. It's like a contract. Now if you upgrade it, a higher level, you go into the chai, into a living animal, a dog, a cat, a cow. Already you see that the lifespan of this living being is much, much shorter than the tree. May live 10, 15 years, may live 30 years, but most of these animals don't live very long. With the exception of a few animals, most animals don't live very long. Without people killing them, just naturally, they don't live very long. You know, once my dog hit already his teen years, every time somebody would see him, it was like, oh, how old is he? Because he always looked like a puppy. And I'd say, oh, he's 16 years old. Wow, he's still alive? I'm like, what do you want from me? We want him to die? He ended up dying at 16. Baruch Hashem. Good dog, cute dog, served his purpose in the world. Probably learned more Torah than any other dog in the world. But the point is, Rabotai, that for him to live 16 years, it's a long time for a dog of his kind. Some dogs live less. One dog that I know, my brother's dog, he had this dog, this, I forgot what they're called, these ugly little dogs. Pugs I think they're called. But people like them. They're so ugly, but people love them. Anyway, this dog was like a mission impossible. I don't know what. This dog went through hell on earth. I think when he was 1 or 2 years old, he fell down the stairs and he broke his back. Now, when they brought him to the doctor says, okay, you're going to kill him, right? Go, no, we're not going to kill him. My brother's like, no, we're going to do surgery, this, that. Long story short, he's like, listen, even if we do a surgery, maybe he's going to live another 6 months. Maybe. Go, you like the dog, let's do the dog. This dog lived another 12 years. I think the doctor died, and the dog didn't die. He broke his back, he broke his eyes, he broke his ears. Everything in his dog broke, but he continued living. He had to finish his TIKKUN. But still, nonetheless, temporary. Temporary. Now, the problem sometimes happens when people treat dogs like people, or people like dogs. That's the problem. Sometimes people are worse than dogs. Some people treat people like dogs. It's not good. But the worst is when people treat their dogs like people. Why? Because they forget that they're dogs. This happens with many, many dog owners, myself included. Before I understood Torah or anything, I was sure that he was better than any person I knew. And he was. But nonetheless, he was still a dog. Now, to stay relevant to the conversation, no matter how much I liked him, Hashem already decreed how long he's going to be in this world. And every animal has a certain amount of time frame it's going to be in this world that's temporary. So we see the growth from the rock that doesn't have a life, unless you go into the Kabbalistic world and so on, but nonetheless doesn't have a life. And you upgrade to the plant, you have a lifespan, long lifespan, but not permanent. Then you go to the higher, you go to the animals, and it's a shorter lifespan. But then you go to the dover, the speaker, the people. And you see that their life expectancy may be, according to statistics, somewhere in the late 70s, or maybe perhaps by now they're in the 80s. But everyone's always surprised when someone dies. Why? Because no one dies expectedly. Most people die unexpectedly. And if you look at the statistics, there are nearly 60 million people that die every single year in the world. You're talking about nearly a couple of 100,000 people die every single day without coronavirus. Of different reasons. Whether it be natural causes, car accidents, drugs, disease, and so on and so forth. A couple of 100,000 every day. More than what Corona has killed in the last few months of nightmare that everyone's been dealing with. Every single day. But you're not seeing anyone quarantine themselves so they don't die. Hashem is not putting the same craziness into people for that. Showing you that even the way we're behaving towards this virus is very, very unique and divine, as far as divine hand being involved here. How much fear we have for something that, grand scheme of things, is not exactly the end of the world. You see people like my cousin who died in his 20s, or his brother that died in his 40s, or my other cousin that died when he was 50-something, and different people that I know throughout my life that have died very young. I think something like almost 30 people from my graduating class are no longer in this world. I'm not that old, I promise. Now, that means that death is not something that has really, for a human being, does not necessarily really have a time span. You may expect to live a certain life and to live a certain amount of time, but no one promises you that. What about if your hair is perfect and your eyes are perfect and your heart is perfect and your feet are perfect and your toes are perfect and your lungs are perfect and you never smoke and you never ate cholesterol and you chewed properly and you slept properly and everything? Does that mean you can live longer? No. There are plenty of people that were in perfect shape that got heart attack in their 40s. Rabbi Yaron Reuven tells a story about his brother-in-law. One of the things that woke him up in his own life was seeing his brother-in-law that was in perfect shape, perfect physique, die in his 40s while he was exercising. Countless people die at different times. Meaning that no matter how much research we do on these different body parts and how much we take care of these body parts, it's all to no avail whatsoever when it comes to life expectancy. Now, surely you should take care of yourself and not abandon yourself to the extent where you yourself are putting yourself in harm's way. You yourself are killing yourself. You're not allowed to do that. But don't for a moment think that just because you exercise, or just because you eat a certain diet, or just because your vision is a certain thing, you are therefore going to live a certain amount of time. Complete nonsense. And just because he smoked, or just because he drank, he died at that. Nonsense. HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides. So what does that conclusion get us to? One of the things we need to think about now, since we all know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to decide how long he wants this partnership to continue. No one is promised tomorrow. I asked my rabbi at one point, should I worry about dying? He said, always. I was expecting like something nice. No, B'ezrat Hashem, you're doing good. No. He said, always. I said, never asking you a question. 5 minutes later, I asked him another question. What kind of answer is that? Shows me like a nice rabbi. He goes, always. Okay, fine. No questions. Why? That's what you're supposed to do. Always. David HaMelech was scared. If I was David HaMelech, I'd be disappointed if I died at 70. That's how long he lived, 70 years. If I was David HaMelech, at least 700 years. I said, Hashem, come on, no, I'm David HaMelech. At least 7. Put another zero on it. What do you care? You gave other people more than 7 years. Why only get 7 years? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides. HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides. So, since we already know that we came from nothing, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu has made that nothing into the something that we are today, and He is also the one that's going to decide to remove Himself from this partnership at some point. Meaning, everyone at some point will leave this world. B'ezrat Hashem, everyone gets enough years to do complete TeShuva and get to Gan Eden. However many years that takes us. Whether it's 120 or 1,020, I don't care. That's not off of my count. The point is, everyone knows it's going to happen. So what conclusion should the ideology, the HaShkafa that we're getting, get us to? What then? Now that Hashem gave us this sophisticated vision, sophisticated taste patterns, sophisticated hearing, sophisticated movement of the body and joints, sophisticated digestive system, sophisticated brain, all of this stuff that He gave us. Why did He create it if it's all going to die anyway? For what? What do I need such a complicated brain if it's all going to go to the maggots anyway? What do I need these things you call fingers if it's all going to be eaten by worms? What do I need these feet? Give them to somebody that needs them. If I'm only going to be lunch one day, what do I need all this for? What you need it for is for it to help you get to the next place that you want to be. Because that neshama, that soul, that spirit, that doesn't die. That's the real you. When you say I am, you're not talking about this body. You're talking about the unexplained, misunderstood, or just not understood thing we called the neshama. You're not talking about this body, because your body is no different than my jacket is on this body. Your body is the clothing on this neshama. And that neshama doesn't die unless you kill it. How can you kill it? By violating the contract. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a contract that if we serve our contract honorably, this neshama that we have will continue permanently. The neshama we don't understand, the neshama that we barely feel, but we know it's there, the neshama that we can't see, but we know that when it's not there, the person is just simply a piece of meat, the neshama that you don't have to be a Jew or a Gentile or even aware very much to know that it exists, because everyone knows that the person that doesn't have a neshama simply dies. You don't have to believe in God to know you have a neshama, because you know that the second that spirit leaves that body becomes just a piece of meat. You don't have to be religious for that. Everyone knows. No one can explain it. No scientist, no psychiatrist. Outside of Judaism, you can't explain it. Why is he alive and the guy next to him is dead? He has eyes, he has eyes. How come he can see, he can't see? He has hands, he has hands. How come he can move his hands, he can't move his hands? What's the difference between them? They both have the body parts. They're both 25 years old, 35 years old. They're both good looking. How come this, how come that? Why? Because you see, this one has a neshama still inside, this one has a neshama that left. No longer there. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that neshama, if it honors the contract by using that body that I gave them, that sophisticated technology that I gave them, that sophisticated suit that I gave them, with a digestive system and a vision and a hearing and a thinking and a conscience and so on, if he uses it to honor and serve me, it will not die. It will go to heaven permanently. But if it violates the contract to such a high degree without doing TeShuva, it will die. But only after it's torn away from the piece that is God Himself. And that's what Gehenom is for. So now, not everyone is at that extreme. Some people sin, but do TeShuva, but not complete TeShuva. For anyone who took the advice that I gave some time ago about looking at the book of Rabbi Yaron Reuven, Shalom, in there you read many, many interesting stories. Rabbi Yaron dealt with the mystical on a daily basis like we deal with the natural. And he tells a story in the Sefer that one time an old man came to him and told him, Rabbi, I need you to help me. I'm an old man and I made a very big sin in my life. I had relations with my daughter-in-law. And I need to do TIKKUN. I need to do TeShuva for it. I'm sorry for it, but I know there's certain TIKKUNim I need to do for it. Please help me. And Rabbi Yaron that was very versed in the mystical and the tikkunim and so on, told him exactly what to do, and he did a tikkun. Shortly after, Rabbi Yaron writes this in the Sefer. This old man came to him, he died, and he came to him in a dream. And he says to him, Kvod Harav, I appreciate what you've done for me, but I wanted to tell you that there was one part that was missing. The tikkun that we did was tikkun for eshet ish, being with a married woman, which is one of the worst crimes you can make in the Torah. A person that dies without doing tikkun on eshet ish has no share of the world to come. Permanent genom. So we did a tikkun on that, Baruch Hashem. And that's why when I died at the Bet Din, they did not give me the Gzar Din of genom permanently. Because I kept Torah, I kept mitzvot, and I had this sin on my thing, but I did a tikkun for it. But as soon as I arrived, they still had two malachim, two giant malachim, take my body, take my neshama, and perform an operation on my brit to remove all of the waste, all of the tum'ah that I had on my brit because I did not do a tikkun on being with the kala, my daughter-in-law. So that one act created a certain amount of tum'ah that they had to remove from me. And they had to perform an operation in Shamayim to remove it from me. And I've been suffering for it until now. And that's for one time, one sin. We're not talking about wasting seed for 20 years. We're not talking about cheating on your wife every other day. We're not talking about having girlfriend, boyfriend. We're not talking about all of the crimes. I'm talking about a religious person made a mistake. Big mistake, but at least did a tikkun before he died. Says to Rabbi Yehuda Ftaya, the two malachim, the size of Shamayim, had an operation on my brit. Who wants one? Anyone want to volunteer? I think it's easier to just keep your brit by remembering the story. Now, sometimes it's the wonderful stories like this that wake up the neshama. Sometimes it's other stories. At times like this, we are using everything that we possibly can to wake people up. We have to. Because we do not want HaKadosh Baruch Hu to make things worse than what they are right now. If you remember some time ago, I said in a shiur here that the tzaddikim from Team Be'ezrat Hashem made into a movie. That there was a Mishnah in Avot that says every single day there's a voice coming out from Mount Chorev, Mount Sinai, that says, Oy la Bria, al elbuna shel Torah, woe to the creation for the desecration of my Torah. Now the Baal Shem Tov Alav Shalom says, who hears this Baal Kol? Who hears this voice? You hear this voice? Who hears this voice? You know who hears this voice, Rabotai Yekarim? Every single time a Jew suddenly wakes up, suddenly has a desire to do what Hashem said. Suddenly, something happened, something didn't happen, but he wants to do the will of Hashem. What does that mean? The Baal Shem Tov says his neshama heard that bat kol. Just a few days ago, I got a message from a guy that started his message with I'm sorry, Rabbi. Usually most of the messages don't start that way. Why did he say I'm sorry, Rabbi? Baruch Hashem, I get a lot of messages, but most of them don't say I'm sorry, Rabbi. But this one said I'm sorry, Rabbi. Why do you say that? He says he's the one, and I know who he is. He's the one that spent an extra amount of effort speaking out against me, speaking out against our shiurim, saying, no, this is made up, this is too much, this is ISIS, this is Daesh, this is Hamas, this is crazy. What is that? Midat Amalek. Midat Amalek cools off people. And for a while in his life he had Midat Amalek in him. But then his neshama, without him even knowing, heard that bat kol. It heard that bat kol, and he says, I'm sorry, Rabbi, for ever saying anything against you and your shiurim, because after I heard your shiur about Jewish HaShkafa, which is the series that we're doing right now as we speak, I realized how beautiful the Torah really is. I'm doing full tshuva. Ishtabach shemo la'ad. Messages like this make me cry. If you have one, please send it. I want to cry. Every single day there's a bat call from Mount Chorev, and I promise you there are Jews that hear it. Because I and my dear friends like Rabbi Nava and Rav Mizrahi and Rabbi Zitron and many other tzaddikim, Rabbi Ephraim, Shichyeh, hear them every single day tell us, we heard the bat call, but in different words. They say, I want to do tshuva. I want to be modest. I want to keep Shabbat. I want to put on tefillin. I want to start protecting my brit. Every single day. Our job, Rabotai, is to force ourselves to also hear the bat call for the things we're not doing yet. Because although we're doing a lot of things right, and we're all wearing a kippah, and we're all keeping Shabbat, and Bezrat Hashem, we're all learning some Torah, and we're all keeping kosher, none of us are perfect, especially starting with me. We all have to hear that bat call also. That bat call is not only for Baalei Tshuva. Don't be mistaken. That bat call is for Am Yisrael. Every single one of us has to wake up every single day and do tshuva. Every single one of us has to wake up every day and hear that bat call and know that that bat call has to be used for our tshuva and for us to help other people do tshuva. Because if we do that, that bat call will turn into a blessing and remove the curse that's in the world today, that's today called Corona, and Hashem Yirachem, what it will be called tomorrow. Let's take advantage of what we learned today. Sound out the horn. It doesn't have to be a real horn, but if you want one, I'll send you one. Sound out the horn and tell Am Yisrael there's a bat call from Mount Chorev calling you. It's time to do tshuva. What do you care? I care because I'm your brother. I care because I'm your sister. I care because your tshuva affects me. That's why I care. And if they don't want to hear it, go to the next person. They'll hear it. And if they don't want to hear it, go to the next person and they'll hear it. And how long should you continue? Forever. As long as that engine continues to work. That's why it's here, because part of our tshuva is to help Klal Yisrael do tshuva. Be'ezrat Hashem, we utilize the teachings of the Chazon Ish, the Rav Wasserman, the Rambam, Moshe Rabbeinu, Ishtabach Shemo La'ad, HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. We use these teachings to do tshuva, to help Klal Yisrael do tshuva, to remove this klala from the world, to bring Mashiach Tzidkenu in a better way than we are going to get him to come anyway, the way we're doing it now. Be'ezrat Hashem, we do tshuva ourselves and bring nachat HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen.